that's going on in this chart. This is the euro rand. So first of all, what we saw the euro rand do in 2020 was to form this triangle here. I think the correct term for it is it's a symmetrical triangle. I think that's the best term for it. So at this point, what happens with a symmetrical triangle is that it can break out either way. As you can see, price was trapped in within this region here, and it's really quite difficult to ever predict which area it's going to go into, because as you can see, we were up here. It could have gone up, but it decided to go down. So you can't really predict that. What you could have gotten was an entry here, which I did close because it started going up this way and I got tagged out. But the important thing is that you really can't predict which direction a symmetrical triangle is going to go in. So that said, price dropped and it dropped and it dropped. And then we saw this rising wedge, which after a rising wedge, usually price falls down to the beginning of it, which it did right here. And then price carried on falling and falling. What's important to note is that now we're currently at a very interesting area. It looks like this is a bullish flag. If you know what a bullish flag is, or a rectangle, it's called a bullish flag or a bullish rectangle, whichever one you pick. So what tends to happen with it is you first see this spike up, right? So this spike up here to this point, and then you see a descending triangle where price is basically trapped within this support and resistance. And in order to not get stopped out, you want to wait for the lower low, right? Because a downtrend is basically lower lows. So this was a low, this was a second low, this was a third low. And so I waited for this last low here, which you can identify using a divergence. So a buy divergence shows you a lower low essentially. Let's see if I can see the divergence for you guys. Exactly. So essentially here it is. Here was the divergence which signaled the buy. So divergence is a whole nother topic, but basically what essentially it is that the price on the chart and the price on the indicator are showing two different things. So here you saw price moving lower than this low here, right? So this price movement was lower than this low here, but you don't see the same thing on the indicator. This became a high and not a low, so that signaled the entry, right? So what's next? So what's happening on my side, what I plan to do is hold for the rest of this bullish flag. So that's holding until we pass through this first resistance, and then we start breaking these areas here. Once we start breaking these areas here, then an uptrend is confirmed, right? Breaking those uptrend, and then on my moving averages, I have an 8-9 moving average and an 8 moving average. Usually, I know people like Dr. David Paul wait for the 89 moving average to be broken on a 4-hour in order for it to be a confirmed uptrend, but that doesn't mean you enter there. It just means that they wait for the 89 moving average to be the break. And also that ties in with this resistance on this bullish flag. The 89 moving average and the resistance on this bullish flag all tie together. So what I'm hoping for this week is that we continue this rise. And obviously, the fundamentals have to also align. So my news I usually get from FX Street, which you must be careful when you're getting your news, because I prefer just the data itself and not an analysis, because you know a lot of these people, they just write what's going to happen, what they think is going to happen, and they tend to just tell you it's going to go up, it's going to go down, and they end up telling you nothing. They basically say it's going up, it's going down, going up, going down, and they tell you nothing. But anyways, on the fundamental side, basically they're predicting the euro going up, and well, what we're all waiting for essentially is for the European Central Bank, to tell us whether or not it's going to release stimulus packages, and they had budgeted 750 billion euros. So right now there's a bit of argument whether that money should be released. And obviously, you know, the Euro countries, Sweden, Denmark, Austria, Netherlands, they're all in talks to see whether or not to release the money or not. And there's also the issue of how it's going to be repaid. Because, like in the US and other countries, some countries have given free stimulus, whereas this money might have to be repaid because 700 billion euros is a lot of money. But hey, there's also lots of news this week, as you can see. This is all the news we're waiting for this week. So hopefully that would drive the euro rand up, right? This is just news on the euro this week, euro and the US dollar. But what's interesting to note is I did go through the US dollar rand because I was assuming that presumably if the rand is falling because of South Africa's recent COVID cases, then we'd expect the US dollar to also be going up. But the US dollar looks terrible. The charts don't actually show much of an uptrend, maybe a bit of a pullback, but nothing close to a recovery like the euro rand. So I've left out the US dollar rand and I'm just focusing on the US dollar, on the euro rand and not the US dollar rand. And secondly, what's also pointed out by this woman, if you want to read some nice articles, I usually like reading her articles. Her name is Valeria Bednarik. She's one of the few authors you should be actually reading on FX Street. She comments on the pairs she likes or the ones she trades, but she gives good insight. And basically, what she was saying was that during this COVID time, we're seeing that a lot of the news isn't adding up to the price action. Well, it's not, the news isn't influencing the price action as it usually would. So, usually, say it was the non farm payroll, and then there was bad news, we'd see the dollar fall before the weekend, right? But it seems like the news hasn't been adding up with what we're seeing in price action, and what's actually influencing price action isn't the fundamentals, and that it seems to be news on COVID is what's actually increasing and decreasing the prices. So also in the euro, what caused a bit of a spike, say in the euro rand and in the US dollar, euro US dollar, was actually that a European medical company is seeing a lot of breakthrough with the vaccine, and apparently they have I forgot how many cases, they've just successful cases they have, which means they've tested this vaccine on people and they've become immune to COVID-19. So that did spark um, a rise in the euro. And we also saw this a bit back with the Australian dollar. The Australian dollar saw a huge spike when there was rumors or there was news about there being breakthrough in the vaccine. So right now it seems that more COVID news is having an impact on price action than the fundamentals themselves. And so if that is the case, then obviously we'll see that the rand may drop because South Africa's COVID cases have now just spiked for some unknown reason. The COVID cases in South Africa has spiked drastically, so that's also another um, fundamental I'm looking at towards holding this position currently.